round of applause for the amazing Charlie. And I like
Thank you.
yeah, Nancy's doing the little wave over there. And we hope, Charlie, we'll see you Monday night at Farm Club where we can celebrate you in person. So, and Taylor, you want to intro Ryan now?
Yeah. Do you have Ryan's bio on the slides?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Great. I appreciate, Charlie, you bringing up the polarization, that we can see in those. People are being, with less people voting independent. That's just a placeholder for people not voting Republican or for the Democratic Party. Yeah, there's a lot of divisiveness, partisanship, and that was one of the reasons why we thought about inviting Ryan to join us to talk about de-escalation. Ryan's very capable of talking about this, but he is also just an incredible advocate for unhoused people experiencing homelessness. I get to work with Ryan at Goodwill Northern Michigan, and he has been there for over 17 years and has been working directly with the unhoused community and in our community for over 14 years as a street outreach coordinator. He is now the community engagement officer, the CEO of Goodwill Northern Michigan, as we joke at work. He serves as a technical advisor for Safe Harbor, which is the emergency shelter in Traverse City. Ryan is on the advisory board for Traverse House Clubhouse and is chair of the Northwest Michigan Coalition to End Homelessness Outreach and Identification Group. The emphasis of his work is on ending homelessness in the Grand Traverse region and street outreach best practices. Ryan and his wife, Grace, live in Traverse City and have 6 children. In his spare time, he enjoys driving his kids to and fro, family time, reading biographies. Ryan is also a huge Bears fan. So Ryan, thanks so much for being here. And yeah, please take it away.
Thank you, Taylor, for such a nice intro, and thank you all for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And I must add, if you all aren't Bears fans, you might consider it, and you can probably out there in Leelanau County get the games broadcast from the top of the Sears Tower on the radio. So with that bit, I will share my screen. Let's try this. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Does it look like a presentation to you guys?
Yes.
Okay. So
Looks like you need to open your slideshow right now. It's showing you all the slides on the left.
thanks, Charles. There we go. How's that look?
That's it, Ryan.
Thanks, guys, for bearing with me on this technical stuff. Taylor reached out to me to ask if I'd come chat with you guys about de-escalation, because I do a de-escalation presentation and a real in-depth nonviolent crisis intervention training for our shelter workers, our outreach workers at the Goodwill Inn in Goodwill, Northern Michigan, and also for the staff at Safe Harbor. So, of course, it's hard to tell Taylor no. So here I am, and I'm really glad to be with you guys because, this is important stuff. So we'll talk about trauma-informed ways of dealing with stressful interactions with folks, and I've done my best to try to tailor it to the situation that you guys are facing and what you guys are doing. So, oh, my title slide on this slide didn't show up, but that's okay. It really is. This is a lot of words, but it's on here so I can help talk through working with trauma and people that may have experiences with trauma. And the reason I start with this is because a lot of people have had experiences with trauma, probably every single person on earth, right? And some people have had more detrimental issues, maybe repeated, but trauma really is in the eyes of the beholder. Each person will perceive and react to trauma in their own unique way. And some people have been able to heal, have support and resources to be able to heal from trauma. There's a number of folks that haven't don't have that opportunity or don't recognize the effects that they've had from trauma. So we really come from the perspective of thinking about people that have experienced trauma, that the symptoms or the results of their behavior based on that is not a fault of their own. It's actually instead a natural reaction to the extended exposure of trauma. And I teach and try to practice of coming from the mindset of rather what's wrong with the person to be rather what's that person has gone through. So starting from that base and engaging with people in general and people we might be talking with or disagree with, we want to, when people get kind of irate or really passionate and negative, that really, rather than what's wrong with them, but what have they gone through that's helped them get to that point. So when working with people with trauma, we want to validate the person's experience and their feelings, and we'll get a little more in depth as we go through here about that topic, or these topics coming up here. Normalize when appropriate. So people's experience is their experience. It may not be our experience, and ways we react may not be the ways other people react, but for them it's normal. Of course, show empathy and definitely respect your relationship or non-relationship with somebody. Be trustworthy. So when we're talking with folks that have differing views, it may be someone we've never met before, and we may be in the relationship building phase of this interaction, or maybe it's someone we've never will see again ever, right? So we don't necessarily have a relationship with them, so we want to respect that, right? We're not here to tell everybody what to do or what to think, even if it or we believe it's better for the world. We really come from a humble, non-judgmental frame in interacting with folks. And then be patient, sensitive, and empathetic. Take time to listen and be non-judgmental. We're going to talk a lot about listening today, because listening is really how we get to understand another person's perspective. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Reawaken America link that Sam, I believe it was Sam that sent out. I don't know if you guys listened to it or not, or read it. How about if everyone raises their hand if they read it or listened to that? I'm not seeing any raised hands. Uh-oh, Sam. I'll give a brief description.
Yeah, sorry, Ryan. I don't remember getting anything like that, so I'm sorry. But
Okay.
we can send it out after this as well.
Very good. What it was a news story about a tour called Reawaken America that really is put on by people who identify as Christian evangelical and Christian nationals, and they have these this message that they bring about America being reawakened into a Christian nation, and they have rallies and followers and often take based on conspiracy theories and a real what ends up into like a violent approach to people that are different than them. And it was really kind of interesting to listen to, but what I wanted to some highlights from it. is what I wanted to share. Is there's one guy named Mark Abram who was the reporter interviewed as one of the attendees to these events, and I wanted to point out some of the things he said that can help us learn when we're talking with people that maybe have very different views and very, very kind of staunch holds on that. He said, when you come to these events, you feel at home. You really do feel like you're amongst good people. So the kind of the point of that is the feeling, right? This guy's being interviewed on the news, and what he's saying is he's talking about his feelings, right? It's kind of a can't think of the word I'm looking for, but a pretty strong approach these events, and people are showing up to them, and some of them like follow it around and go to all of them. But the reason is because the feeling that they get and they're a part of something. At the very end of the interview, the person agreed. They were talking about violence against people who are transgendered and things like that. And at the end of that discussion, the person agreed with the reporter, because she was talking about how when we dehumanize people, how it really degrades us as people, and how that's what Hitler did, and how the atrocities began to happen there, and how, you know, public buy-in, or at least people didn't stand up. So really acknowledging we actually agree on the matter, but these things are still happening. Another interesting thing I learned from listening to that was that many of these rally goers that identify as Christian nationalists have left their Christian churches. And what's happened is they now have lost their identity and their belonging to what they used to know. And now these conspiracy theory groups and these rallies have replaced what they're used to being a part of. So that's just information that I think we need to keep in mind when we're talking to folks who may be real angry about politics. So considering factors when we're talking with folks, one of the things we teach is that behavior influences behavior. No matter what the person we're talking with or interfacing with is doing, how we react can influence the outcome of the situation positively or negatively. We can't control other people, but our behavior may influence the situation. We want to keep in mind preemptive factors, things that may be what we would call triggers for people. So sometimes, as we all may have experienced, our yard signs may be a trigger for people. You may have had your yard signs defaced, damaged, stolen, whatever it is, right? Just the fact of having a different view may be a trigger for somebody. How we approach and our demeanor when we're talking to folks may be a factor. And we certainly want to keep our cool, our professionalism, and keep in mind what we're here to do, or what we're there to do in our situations. Kind of raising the temperature of our mood doesn't help any situations we may be in. And when we're talking with folks, we want to be mindful of what are we saying or not saying. When we're having a heated conversation or it's escalating, we want to keep simple, short, and clear responses. Certainly being respectful. And I put on here a whole lot of listening. I find, you guys may find this too, but when someone is really passionate about an issue, positive or negative, there's something underlying there that's going on, and they like to talk about it. So being respectful and just listening, there may be even some things that are difficult to listen to and hear, but allowing people to get that out starts to be, they start to feel validated that they're, as far as they're being listened to, and that division isn't just automatic, right? Listening to what they're saying. And then the old agree to disagree. We can say things like, I understand where you're coming from, or I see now what you're talking about, or I can understand why you feel that way. Really getting to that point where we understand where that person is coming from is without that, I don't think there's any civil conversation that can be had. And then positively phrasing. One of the things that came up in that radio interview also was people that attend these or are feeling this way, they feel like they're attacked as racists and homophobic. And that certainly may be what's going on. However, they don't look at it that way. And just the thought of them being attacked that way stops any positive or meaningful or civil engagement or discussion. So just as we don't like to see violent type language and behavior, we want to make sure we're not using that as well, justified or not, right? And then we could talk about, when we're talking about these issues, we could try to humanize it, like the gentleman at the end of the interview was agreeable to the topic that was being talked about. We might try to humanize the situation by saying a person who is transgender, really bringing that person first language to the conversation and bringing it back, not getting pulled into a challenging situation, but bringing it back to the facts. And we may know someone who is a transgender person or who has is a minority that's been a victim of racist attacks or thought. So really trying to humanize these issues, I find, is helpful. And then choose wisely what we're insisting. I got a whole lot of listening on here again. I find when we're curious about a person's situation, they really, if they find a person who will listen, they will talk and talk and talk, and you can really gain an understanding and help that person feel like they're being heard. Kind of establish what's negotiable and what is not. That stems from the training on helping guests meet expectations in the shelter and about we're not trying to control people, and is there flexibility in what we're talking about. I added on the slide here, when is freedom of choice applicable? We hear a lot of people talking about freedom, and this is the United States of America, and we have freedom to choose what we want. We often see that freedom of choice applied only to certain situations. So really helping when we're talking with folks, and we help establish a freedom that they have. Maybe that they have a freedom to right to bear arms. They have a freedom to speak what they want, right? Yes, those are all freedoms we have in America. But it goes both ways, right? We have freedom of choice of lots of other things. And so establishing that point of when is freedom of choice applicable can really be helpful. We can come from the same place. No matter what side of the aisle we're on, we all believe in freedom. And then I like to throw in a little motivational interviewing. I'm talking to somebody like, what would it look like if your freedoms were protected? Or what would a perfect world and what you're describing look like? And then they go on to describe some of the same things that we're feeling and want in life and in our democracy. Listening really is the key to all that. And certainly being mindful of how do we sound? What is our tone? Are we passive aggressive? Are we kind of, I'm guilty of this sometimes, some kind of smart aleck remarks sometimes. But we really want to come from a place of peace and understanding. And then volume. Are we raising our voices to yell when folks are yelling at us? And then a rhythm of speech, right? It may take some practice and mindfulness to just talk regular like I'm talking now. And when we're in a heated conversation, our adrenaline kicks in, right? Our heart's beating faster. We have to mindfully and intentionally keep calm. And a way to do that is avoid overreacting. We want to remain calm, rational, and professional. We can't control the person's behavior, but we can control how we respond. One of my inspirations is John Lewis and his commitment to non-violence, no matter what. And I just am amazed at how he can do that. But he really practiced. We can't control how other people behave, Certainly we can control how we respond. And it took a lot of practice and training that he did and the people he worked with did. Some of the things we can work on is mindfulness, positive self-talk. Talk about how I can handle this. I know what to do. And that can help us maintain our rational thinking and calm demeanor, but also remembering what we don't know. We don't know everything. We don't have to agree on everything, but remaining that humble kind of spirit is helpful. Don't freak out when you hear Fox News on here, because I often freak out when I hear that, but we don't have to, right? People we know people watch it, right? We know people, that's where they get their source of information. And we don't, I think it was asked somebody, do you watch Fox News? And the response was like over the top, like, oh, no way, I wouldn't watch that. Like right there, we've ended the, it could end the possibility to be able to have some meaningful discussion and listening, right? We want to hear why people watch Fox News. And if we're able to get to a calm understanding point where the person is listening to us, then we could remind them that Fox News is not actually listed as a legitimate news source. But that's just my little incentive for you guys there. We want to be mindful of how we look, right? Are we invasive in personal space? Oftentimes people we're talking with that are heated and animated might kind of come towards us and want to be intimidating just by body language and moving closer. Are we doing that when we're talking? We can take a step back. We can kind of not be, straight on face to face with somebody with that can kind of be perceived as challenging, right? We can be a little, angled. Our bodies can be a little angled when we're talking with folks. And then are we listening with empathy, non-judgmental? It can be very difficult in heated situations or people we think very differently about. It may take real mindfulness to remember this person is a person, and the way they're reacting, there is some sort of reason for it. And then undivided attention, listening to listen, not to listen to respond. Listen to the facts they're saying and really get to the feelings. One of the things I like to really promote is embracing the silence. When you're talking to people and there's like an awkward sense of a time of silence, it's okay. That is time where people are breaking down what you're saying, perhaps. And then paraphrasing, making sure clarify we're understanding what they're saying. And remember, whether we agree with it or not, we're understanding what they're saying. And then letting them know we're listening by letting them know we understand what they're saying. And certainly focus on feelings. Facts are important, but how that person feels in the moment matters the most. If we're gonna, be able to have some dialogue and maybe change minds or at least educate folks, we got to focus on their feelings. When a person's has trauma in their life or are in fight or flight mode or really animated and amped up, they may have trouble describing how they feel about what's happening to them. We want to watch and listen carefully for the person's real message. Then conveying support and understanding may help a more positive response there. That can be hard. How can we convey support and understanding to someone who's maybe saying some very hurtful things about people we know or love or ourselves? That can be a very difficult thing to do. We're going to make progress in healing this divide. We've got to come from a mindset of where that person's coming from. Listening comes up again here, listening with empathy. Caring about the hurting that person's going through. Validate their feelings, justified or not. Their feelings are their feelings. Their reality is their reality. We don't have to agree and validate conspiracy theories, but we can validate what a person is feeling. Pay attention to them. These issues may be the most important thing in their life right now. There's a lot of the conspiracy theory people pushing, and it was reflected on that Reawaken America interview, that some people think like this election or these elections or this our government is like the end of the world situation. So that's a very kind of powerful feeling that a person is coming from. Maybe the only thing that they're really focused on, and it's okay to validate their feelings in these situations. I do have hope, though, as we heard from Charles and the results. I was encouraged by that, and seemed like perhaps there was some kind of healing or coming together across the country for the most part. I mean, the kind of the far conspiracies are kind of, it's not winning anymore. Ignoring challenging questions. Oftentimes when I find myself in conversations with people with very different views, a lot of it is because of a lack of understanding, and they kind of automatically go into questions to try to pull you into a power struggle. When a person challenges your authority or your knowledge or facts, redirect their attention to the issue at hand. We don't want to go off on angry tangents, and it may be repeated redirects back to the situation. And there may be situations where the person can't come back and we're not having this conversation anymore, or we agree to come back another time or revisit later. But really, when the anger and the attacks come and the challenging, you don't know, you're brainwashed by Joe Biden type stuff, we don't want to be pulled in. Okay, we want to stick to the nature at hand. Bring back the focus on what we can work together on for the solution, not the problem. Because oftentimes, even in my talks about homelessness, whether people don't want to see people who are homeless because they think they're dangerous, unworthy, or going to ruin their neighborhood, or people who don't want to see people who are homeless because everyone should be in housing and not live that way. We both have the same goal of not wanting to see people who are homeless out there. So how can we get and maximize on the similarities of the issues there? Again, allow for silence, for reflection. It can be awkward. It's okay. Sometimes it's the best choice. It gives a person time to reflect on the decision and how to proceed. And it actually is part of the de-escalation process. If someone is thinking, you may have a aha moment. Some of the things we're talking about where people, it just seems so out of this world that they believe this situation, and maybe you're making progress in helping on educating, and then they're processing it. Because some of the things we heard on that interview, to me, seems so out of this world. And if we can help people bring people back to the reality of things, let's let them process that. That is our goal here. Allow time for the decisions. When people are in fight or flight mode, they're not thinking clearly, right? When they think this, and I've seen a lot of there's some people on Facebook that are friends of mine that are think differently. They're hurting now. They cannot believe that there wasn't this red wave. They really don't understand, and that's where they're coming from. They may not be thinking clearly. People need time to process. People are feeling rushed. Stress rises. It takes time. It may be door knocking, or in a situation, or Thanksgiving dinner, or whatever it is, right? It takes time. Allow time. Allowing the time brings calm. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for inviting me. I want to share one thing I forgot to share. I have there's a pretty conservative friend of mine who had an interaction where there was a door knocker that came to her house, and it was actually someone knocking for Betsy in Leelanau County, and this friend of mine is very conservative, but she had brought it up and she had told me about how almost all of the things that Betsy is running for and standing for, she agrees with and agrees that it's good, but she just couldn't get over the abortion thing. So there's lots of issues out there and lots of common ground we can come to. Being calm, collected, and understanding can help us get there. How did I do on time, you guys? Is that too fast?
You do great. That's great. And it does allow for questions. I do want to make the plug while we still have full attention on Wednesday night, Ryan, is the walk in Traverse City.
Yes, the walk for health and housing. So right now, November is all Michigan statewide is Homeless Awareness Month. And then starting today, actually, is National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. And every year is a partnership with the Northwestern Michigan College through their social work, sociology, and English 112 department. And we partner with service learning on homelessness in the fall semester. And one of the highlights we do is what we call the Walk for Health and Housing. It'll be Wednesday night, November 16th at 5:30 p.m. We meet in front of the not the governmental center, pardon me. That's the Homeless Memorial Walk, December 21st. But this Wednesday, we meet in front of the Great Lakes Maritime Academy, across from McDonald's there downtown where they park the big boat. We meet there, I'll say a few words, and then we have a big crowd of students, their families, the public is invited. We always have a lot of people, and it's a really interesting thing. We walk and we stop at spots throughout downtown Traverse City, and then we hear from people who serve people experiencing homelessness, and we hear from their perspective what they see people who are experiencing homelessness, what they go through. They talk about what they do and what they're doing about it to help, and then kind of hammer the message home with this is why we need housing in our communities. And we hear from we'll hear from Dan Buren, our CEO, about street outreach, the Goodwill Inn, our housing support services, and our Street Med Collaborative. And then we hear from the city police and what they see. Oftentimes police officers see people experiencing homelessness even more often than we do in the serving sector. We'll hear from Pastor Jane Lippert at the Central United Methodist Church, where they have breakfast Monday through Friday and showers. And then the Jubilee House, which is a day drop-in center that's now expanded to be open till 5:30 each day on the weekdays. And we'll hear from the mayor down in front of the governmental center on what the perspective of homelessness affects Traverse City and what they're doing about it. And then we're going to go over to kind of I call it the dirt lot between the new common grounds building on 8th Street and Safe Harbor. And we're going to hear from Safe Harbor and what they got going on. And then from Ashley Halliday Schmidt, the director of the Northwest Michigan Coalition to End Homelessness, which we're a part of, in that vital collaboration efforts from the community to end homelessness. So it's a really powerful experience, more powerful than I even realized. And I've been doing it for 7 years. So it's a really cool way to come out and engage with folks and learn and see what's going on.
Ryan, I want to thank you so much for this presentation. And I'd ask that you stop your screen share now.
Oh,
So we can also see folks if they have a question for you. But your presentation really made me think about how it's easy to get into the herd mentality. And, just like in the Awaken America thing where they felt at home, it's easy for me to feel at home with these folks and to make fun of other folks. And that's really not where I want to be directing my energies. And so I really thank you for your presentation. You just made me more aware of, my own personal belief system about how we teach peace and how we go about establishing it in the world for all of us. So I really want to thank you. And Kate Dahlstrom has her hand up. So Kate.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Ryan. Oh my gosh, you are so calm and so, such humility. You are the ultimate purveyor of what we all need to do, right? So you touched on something that is really kind of near and dear to my heart, and that's your friend, your conservative friend who agreed with what Betsy, her positions are other than abortion. And I, used to be a Republican for 38 years, and that's the big stumbling block for me. And even though I vote for pro-choice now, I think we should all do what we can to reduce the number of abortions, like over-the-counter contraception, affordable birth control pills and things like that, because I think we all would like to see the numbers of abortions come down. And there are ways to do that, better education and just, easier access to birth control and things like that. So, rather than, and I know none of us here would rub it in anyone's face how, with that passed in Michigan, but that we could all come together and work to, reduce the number of abortions through, there's, just a lot of ways to do that. But thanks, Ryan, for talking to us, and you've made
You're
a lot of
welcome.
good points. That motivational interviewing too. I need a class in that, motivational interviewing for dummies, right?
Yeah, I also had a question, Ryan, when I'm a door knocker, and what I notice at the doors is when you meet someone who has a very different view and their voice starts to escalate, is I'm thinking, okay, now they are now parroting wherever they get their news from. And I need to back out peacefully and say, have a nice day. So do you have any advice for that kind of situation?
I might say something like, I see you feel very passionate about this issue. Tell me more. Get them going and talking, and then they start to hear themselves and how maybe ridiculous they're sounding, and may be able to help them at least feel heard, right? That's the first starting.
Okay. Yeah.
If it's dangerous and they're attacking, yelling, it's okay to leave, but we do it in a peaceful way and say, okay, thank you for your time, and just go. We don't have to argue and that sort of thing. But if we can get to a point where they're sharing why they're feeling the way they're feeling, that can be helpful.
Thanks. So when we're training door knockers for next time, we can put this in.
Well, it's also, it can be difficult, right? Sometimes even acknowledging how someone's feeling, that may make them even feel worse. But usually they start to think a bit if they see that a person's actually listening to them, and you can kind of watch the digression of anger actually as you listen. The longer you listen, the more calm they become.
Taylor?
Ryan, you brought up, and people brought it up in the chat too, like this idea of having this be a practice and taking training and time. Is there anything that that you would recommend, or is there anything that's worked for you personally for like how to make sure our skills of de-escalation and of listening are, maintained?
I would first start with, and I think you guys can appreciate this, I would first start with like the busyness of life and trying to keep up with all that kind of capitalism demands, right? It's hurry, 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 more. Slowing down is the first thing. Trying to slow down. It takes time to listen to people. That is the number one thing. But then as far as skills and keeping sharp on de-escalation, it also goes back to self-care, right? What are our triggers? Did we eat on time today? Are we hangry? What's affecting us? But then motivational interviewing, there's probably lots of trainings out there. It's part of what we learn in our social work training in college, that sort of thing. But motivational interviewing and coming together, one of the I identify as a Christian, and my I try to bring my values to what I believe in, what I do. But there's an organization called the Fetzer Institute that really looks at ways to heal the difference of dividing. That may be a good resource for people.
Yeah, there's a couple of things in the chat, if you look in the chat, that folks have put in as well. And Marcy, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just I did put a link to an organization called the Center for Nonviolent Communication, and I took their course, I don't know, several years ago, and it's exactly what Ryan's talking about, but it's a virtual course. So if you want to just tackle it on, on your own time, it's extremely helpful, really, really helpful, and there's a lot of practice exercises and things like that, so you can get better at it, which is the hard part.
So I think the reason I'm so good at it is many, many years of talking with people who are experiencing homelessness who, they felt that society has wronged them, right? And maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but just years of experience of listening is what I can bring to the table here. I think there's more hands, maybe.
I don't see any more right
Oh.
now.
I just had a brief comment. This is Barb.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan. I just wanted to briefly share that several years ago, I was getting my generator maintained and I struck up a conversation with the fellow. This was before I'd even heard of QAnon. And this was actually the first time I did hear of QAnon because I simply listened to him. I was asking questions about what he was doing to my generator because I was just curious. And then he started talking about other things and things I'd never heard of. And I just simply listened and asked more questions and listened and asked more questions. And at the end of it, he said, nobody has ever listened to me like this before. Thank you. And I said, well, I don't really buy a lot of what you said. I don't understand it, but I want you to know that I really appreciate you talking to me about, kind of what you believe and what you're involved with. So I think we can make this a little too complicated. I think, as you just said, Ryan, it's non-judgmental listening. It's not agreeing, but trying to understand where somebody's coming from. And I have no idea what happened. I mean, he left and we both had an experience of, I think, being heard, and hopefully for that young man, maybe it made a difference.
Great job, Barb.
Yeah, that was perfect, Barb. Okay, sure.
If I could add, like you listened and you heard him say, no one ever listens to me, right? But we know that his QAnon people are listening, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of what he said. Nobody from outside has ever listened to me like this.
I think Jerry, did you?
Yeah, I want to thank you. This is actually both presentations today have been extraordinary, but having as a lawyer listened to a lot of people in great difficulty, I'm very grateful for this. I hope the slides will be preserved and we will all take them very seriously. One of the things that did not come out was the role of an unpretentious sense of humor in these relationships, because sometimes we have found it very helpful in establishing common humanity with clients who have been really treated wrongly in so many ways.
Good point, Jerry. There's some funny stuff that happens out there. We can use that to help de-escalate and bring together folks. Use it. Yep.
Yeah, I was actually at the Board of Canvassers on Thursday, and one of the Republican Board of Canvassers started making jokes, and everybody said it was the first time he'd ever done that. And I thought it was really it was a very nice